Hello, and welcome to the special Fantasy Football Playoffs edition of Fantasy Talk with your host, Tyler Ferrero. And today, I will be talking about week 14 and 15 of fantasy football season, which is now the playoffs, where things start heating up. And to start things off, I'll be talking about my sleeper picks for week 14 and 15 of the NFL season. And my first sleeper pick is quarterback Josh McCown for the Chicago Bears. And since McCown has replaced Jay Cutler due to injury in the Chicago Bears offense, he has been playing very well. And this week, they're going up against the Dallas Cowboys, who have the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the NFL. And McCown is owned in only 14.3% of ESPN fantasy leagues. So pick him up if you need help at the quarterback position. And my second sleeper pick is wide receiver Kendall Wright, the Tennessee Titans. And for my third and final sleeper pick is the Buffalo Bills defense/special teams. And the Bills lead the NFL in sacks. And the next 2 weeks are going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are two of the worst teams in the NFL. And the Bills are owned in only 21.9% of ESPN fantasy leagues. So if your defense this week has a tough matchup, try to pick the Bills defense up. And now it's time for the love and hate segment for the fantasy football playoffs, which are week 14 and 15 of the NFL season. And my first player I love this week is running back Eddie Lacy for the Green Bay Packers. And Lacy and the Green Bay Packers are going up against the Atlanta Falcons and Dallas Cowboys the next 2 weeks. And each of those teams have a very bad run defense. So expect Lacy to get plenty of touches, as superstar quarterback Aaron Rodgers is still out with a broken collarbone. So expect Lacy to continue putting up huge numbers after last week's poor performance on Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions. And for the second player I love for the next 2 weeks of the fantasy football playoffs is Bobby Rainey, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you might be able to pick up Rainey, as for the last 2 weeks, he has played pretty poorly. But the reason is because they've gone versus two of the top run defenses in the NFL. And expect Rainey to get a lot of touches this week against the Buffalo Bills, because the Bucs like to run the ball, so expect him to play pretty well for the upcoming fantasy football playoffs. And for the third and final player I love for the first round of the fantasy football playoffs is Nick Foles, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Foles, for the past 4 weeks, has had over 20 fantasy points in each of them. And for the next 2 weeks, Foles and the Eagles will be going up against the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings, who both have two of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So continue to start Foles if you have him on your team. And now it's time for the hate part of the segment. And for the first player I hate is Colin Kaepernick, quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And this week, Cap and the 49ers are going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who have the best pass defense in the NFL. And the 49ers want to run the ball, and since week 1, Kaepernick hasn't thrown for over 300 yards. So expect him to play pretty poorly for the fantasy football playoffs in the first round. And the second player I hate is Danny Amendola, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. And Amendola has been banged up all year, and that's why he's been struggling. And this week, the Patriots are going up against the Cleveland Browns, who have one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL, in Joe Hayden. And Amendola might find Hayden covering him all game. So expect Brady to be throwing to other targets if Hayden is covering Amendola. And expect Amendola to play pretty poorly this week. And for the third and final player I hate for the first round of the fantasy football playoffs is quarterback Andrew Luck for the Indianapolis Colts. And Luck has struggled since his top wide receiver, Reggie Wayne, has been injured. And the Colts are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have one of the toughest defenses in the NFL. So expect Luck to play pretty poorly for round 1 of the NFL fantasy football playoffs. Now that wraps up this episode of Fantasy Talk, as I talked about round 1 of the fantasy football playoffs. I'm Tyler Farrell, and I'd like to thank you for watching.